Why are doctors lagging behind on the wealth scale? There are several reasons. Foremost among them is the correlation between wealth and education. This relationship may surprise some people. For all high-income earners, those earning at least $100,000 annually, the relationship between education and wealth accumulation is negative. High-income PAs are significantly less likely than UAWs to hold graduate degrees, law degrees, or medical degrees. Millionaires type E. Cali indicate on our survey business owner with some college, four-year college graduate, or no college. Warning: parents should not suggest that their children drop out of college and start a business. Most businesses fail within a few years of their conception. Only a small minority of business owners ever earns a six-figure income, but those who do tend to accumulate more wealth than others in the same income cohort. The some college, four-year college graduate, and no college types who have high incomes often had a head start on many well-educated workers. Doctors and other well-educated professionals get a very late start in the earnings race. It is difficult to accumulate wealth when one is in school. The longer one stays in school, the longer one postpones producing an income and building wealth. Most experts on wealth agree that the earlier one starts investing one's income, the greater the opportunity to accumulate wealth. Mr. Dempsey, for example, is a business owner with 2 years of technical school training in data processing. He started working and building wealth at the age of 22. Today, 30 years later, he has benefited greatly from the meteoric increase in the value of his pension plan. In sharp contrast, consider the situation of Dr. Dokes, who graduated from high school the same year as Mr. Dempsey. Dr. Dokes opened his private medical practice more than a dozen years after his classmate, Mr. Dempsey, started a business. During that 12-year period, Dr. Dokes spent his time studying and spending his savings, his parents' money, and money he borrowed for tuition and living expenses. During the same time, Mr. Dempsey, who designated himself as not college material, focused his resources on building his business and becoming financially independent. Who is in the UAW category today? Is it the not college material business owner, Mr. Dempsey, or the valedictorian of his high school class, Dr. Dokes? The answer is obvious. Mr. Dempsey is a prototypical PAW, while Dr. Dokes is a UAW. Interestingly, both earned approximately the same income last year, nearly $160,000. $5 UT. Mr. Dempsey has 5 to 6 times the wealth of his high school classmate. And he has no debt. Mr. Dempsey can teach us all something about accumulating wealth. Begin earning and investing early in your adult life. That will enable you to outpace the wealth accumulation levels of even the so-called gifted kids from your high school class. Remember, wealth is blind. It cares not if its patrons are well-educated. So the authors have an excuse. How else does one explain why two experts on wealth are not wealthy? In part, because they spend a combined total of nearly 20 years pursuing higher education. Another reason very well-educated people tend to lag behind on the wealth scale has to do with the status ascribed to them by society. Doctors, as well as others with advanced degrees, are expected to play their parts. Mr. Dempsey is a small business owner. In spite of being wealthy, he is not expected by society to live in an exclusive neighborhood. He would not be out of place living in a modest home or driving a nondescript sedan. His domestic overhead is significantly lower than Dr. Dokes's. Many people tell us that you can judge a book by its cover, meaning that high-grade doctors, lawyers, accountants, and so on are expected to live in expensive homes. They also are expected to dress and drive in a style congruent with their ability to perform their professional duties. How do you judge the professionals you patronize? Too many people judge them by display factors. Extra points are given to those who wear expensive clothes, drive luxury automobiles, and live in exclusive neighborhoods. They assume a professional is likely to be mediocre, even incompetent, if he lives in a modest home and drives a 3-year-old Ford Crown Victoria. Very, very few people judge the quality of the professionals they use by net worth criteria. Many professionals have told us that they must look successful to convince their customers, clients that they are. Of course, there are exceptions. But people who spend many years in college, professional school, or graduate school are more likely to have higher levels of household overhead than less educated people. As a rule, doctors have exceptionally high levels of domestic overhead. The concern in many of these households is with consuming, not investing. Physicians often find that there are disadvantages to living in affluent neighborhoods. People who live in expensive areas are often bombarded with solicitations from cold-calling investment experts. Many of these callers assume that people in upscale areas have money to invest. In reality, many people who live in luxury have little money left over after funding their high-consumption lifestyles. Some naive cold callers purchase prospect lists that fit 2 criteria. First, prospects must be physicians. Second, they must live in exclusive neighborhoods. It's no wonder physicians are the favorite targets of some of America's most aggressive sellers of investment ideas. 2. Often doctors who receive such solicitations assume that the callers are just as professional as physicians. Many physicians have told us that they have had bad experiences with investing via cold callers. In fact, many have been burned so badly that they never again invested in the stock market. This is unfortunate given the overall growth in the real value of the equity market, and in rejecting the stock market, they figured that left them with more money for spending. This attitude is not as rare as one might think. A plastic surgeon added that he had 3 boats and 5 cars but hadn't gotten around to assembling a pension plan. Financial investments? Didn't have those either. Speaking of his colleagues, the surgeon said, "I don't know even one guy who hasn't been beaten to death in the financial markets. As a result, they don't have anything. At least I'm going to enjoy spending my money." Later on, this doctor summed up his financial philosophy. "Money," he said, with a wave of his hand, "is the most highly renewable resource." Thomas J. Stanley, "Why You're Not as Wealthy as You Should Be." Medical Economics. July 1992. What other factors explain why so many doctors are members of the UAW group? Our research shows that they are generally unselfish. On average, they contribute a higher percentage of their incomes to noble causes than do other high-income producers. Also, doctors are among the least likely to receive inheritances from their parents. Their less educated brothers and sisters are significantly more likely to inherit money. In some cases, physicians are asked by their elderly parents to help out their less fortunate brothers and sisters after the parents are no longer able to help pay their bills. These findings are detailed in Chapter 6. Doctors often allocate large amounts of their time to serving patients. They rarely work fewer than 10 hours a day, thus expending most of their time, energy, and intellect on patients. In so doing, they tend to neglect their economic well-being. Some doctors figure that working hard translates into a large income and that, therefore, there is no need to design a household budget. Some ask why they should waste time planning a domestic budget and investments when there is so much income to be made. Many high-income producing UAWs feel this way. PAWs tend to have just the opposite feelings. To them, money is a resource that should never be squandered. They know that planning Budgeting and being frugal are essential parts of building wealth, even for very high-income producers. Even high-income producers must live below their means if they intend to become financially independent. And if you're not financially independent, you will spend an increasing amount of your time and energy worrying about your socioeconomic future. Controlling. Planning and controlling consumption are key factors underlying wealth accumulation. Thus, one should expect that paws like Dr. North take the time to plan their budgets. They do. Conversely, Dr. South has no control over his family's consumption other than his household's income limit. We asked Drs. South and North about their respective planning and controlling systems. Question: does your household operate on a fairly well thought-out annual budget? Drive South: no. Drive North: yes, absolutely. Operating a household without a budget is akin to operating a business without a plan, without goals, and without direction. The Norths have a budget that calls for them to invest at least 1/3 of their pre-tax household income each year. In fact, during the year that we interviewed Drive North, he and his wife invested nearly 40% of their annual pre-tax income. How were they able to do this? In short, they consume at the same level as the average family that earns about 1/3 as much as they do. What about the Souths? They consume at the same level as the average household that earns nearly 2 times more than they do. In fact, their hyperuse of credit is more in line with that of households that earn several $1,000,000 each year. The Souths essentially spend all of or more than their income each year. This income is their only restraint. We asked both doctors another set of questions. 1. Do you know how much your family spends each year for food, clothing, and shelter? 2. Do you spend a lot of time planning your financial future? 3. Are you frugal? You probably predicted the outcome. Dr. South responded with 3 no's, while Drive North responded in true PAW fashion with 3 yes. Consider the frugal orientation of Drive North. He stated emphatically, for instance, that he never bought a suit that was not offered at a discount or a special price. This is not to suggest that Drive North is poorly dressed, nor does he wear cheap suits. Rather, he purchases quality clothing, but not at full price and never on impulse. This behavior was part of his socialization process as a youth. When I was going to school, my wife taught. We had a small income. Even then, we always had a rule to save. Even then, we saved. You can't invest without something. The first thing is to save. Even when I was 11 years old, Z saved my first dollar or so from working in a grocery store. It's just like today, only today. The number of zeros change, more zeros, but it's the same rule, same discipline. You must take advantage of investment opportunities. You have to have something to take advantage of excellent opportunities. It's part of my background. Drive South reported having just the opposite orientation. How much did he and his family spend on clothing during the year prior to our interview? About $30,000, see Table 3-2. Thus, the South spend nearly as much on clothing each year as the average American household earns in total, that is, $33,000. The home team. Most high-income households consist of traditional married couples with children. Both the South and North households are traditional. We determined long ago that the habits of both husband and wife account for variations in accumulating wealth. Your spouse's tie-in toward thrift, consumption, and investing is a significant factor in understanding your household's position on the wealth scale. Who is the tightwad in your household? In the case of Drive North's family, both he and his wife fit the profile. Both live well below their means. Both contribute to planning their well-thought-out annual budget. Neither objects to buying used motor vehicles. Both can tell you how much their family spends each year for a variety of products and services. Neither objected to sending their children to public elementary and high schools. Both place a high priority on being financially independent. Yet these goals never translated into shortchanging their 3 children. The parents funded their children's college educations, as well as their graduate school and law school tuition and fees. They also provided them with funds to purchase homes and for related expenditures. The Norths paid for these expenditures out of investments that they set aside for their children. Conversely, the Souths are not investors. Almost all such allocations in the South household come from current earned income. What if your household generates even a moderately high income, and both you and your spouse are frugal? You have the foundation for becoming and maintaining PW status. On the other hand, it is very difficult for a married couple to accumulate wealth if one is a spendthrift. A household divided in its financial orientation is unlikely to accumulate significant wealth. Even worse are cases in which both the wife and her husband are spendthrifts. This is the domestic situation the Souths find themselves in today. Interestingly, Dr. South reported to us that he is the tight wad in his household. Is he? True, he takes aim at the shopping and consumption habits of his spouse, but spending all or even most of their annual income takes a team effort. Both are hyperconsumers. Both contribute to their lower-than-expected position on the wealth scale. Let's evaluate Drive South's wealth-building performance. He is responsible for his household's income